For many, Bun, the JavaScript runtime, has become irreplaceable. It started with this simple node compatibility idea, but they've added so much more on top of it. And today I want to show you how you can send emails using a Bun server. You ready? Let's go. Okay, so to get started with, let me show you the project we've got. It's very simple. You can see I'm simply just serving up a little HTTP server here, and we're just returning hello world. In fact, I can see that if I jump over here, it just says hello world. Okay, so what we want to do now is add Resend to this project so that we can send emails. So let's do that next. So at the top of the file, let's go ahead and import Resend from Resend, and then we'll instantiate a new Resend class, and I need to pass it an API key. Now we can get this from Resend, so let's do that next. So I'm in my Resend account. I can just click new API key here, and let's call this something like Bun, just so I know what it's for. And I'll hit add, and then I'll copy this over. Obviously, you should keep this secret and add it to like a .env file so that it doesn't get committed with your Git history. So let's do that next. So over here, let's create, actually I think I've already got one. Yeah, right here, ready for me, Resend_API key. You can name it whatever you want, but that's what we typically do. And I'll delete this before you have a chance to use it. All right, so back over here, I now have this instantiated, and the last thing I need to do is just send an email. So let me copy the snippet over from the docs, and this will send an email that just says hello world from Bun. All right, so let me paste this in here. You'll notice that I get back both data and error. This should just be the ID, and then if there is an error, I want to go ahead and handle that as well. So over here, you'll see I'll just say, if there's an error, then go ahead and return this 500 error with whatever the error is. Okay, so now we should be set to go. I'm going to return this data instead of hello world because that way it's actually useful to me. And now all I have to do is revisit that URL. So I'll refresh it here, and there we go. Okay, cool. So we've got the email sent, and I can actually check this as well inside Resend. So I'll go back to the API keys, go to the emails table, and right here, less than a minute ago, hello from Bun. Okay, so we've sent this successfully, but obviously I'm just sending from like a stock onboarding at resend.dev to delivered at resend.dev. So let's actually send this from my own custom domain. So let's do that next. All right, so back to the code here. I want to add a new from address here, and this I want to be for my own custom domain. So this is going to be orders.waybackstore.com. Okay, and we'll just say something like notice or something like that. All right. And then I want to send this to Chris plus bun at resend.com. So another custom email address. All right, so this looks like it should work, right? I'm just swapping out the from and the to, but let me head back over here. Let's refresh, and you'll see it says orders.waybackstore.com domain is not verified. So this comes to our next thing. We've added an API key. We've got the call ready, but if I want to use a custom domain, I have to authorize Resend to send on my behalf. And that protects your reputation, obviously. You don't want anybody being able to send for you. You need to only send for yourself. So that's what we're going to do next. Let's add the domain in Resend. So back in my domain, I happen to have one with several different subdomains, but I'm going to go ahead and add a new one. And this will just be orders.waybackstore.com. Now you should choose the region that's closest to your main users. In this case, I'll choose the US East one, but you can use whatever one works for you. And I'll click add domain. Now, right now we're just going to set this up for sending emails, but you may also want to set this up for receiving emails, in which case you want to toggle on the extra receiving functionality. Now I happen to be using Cloudflare for this one, so I've got a one-click install. But if you don't, you'll be presented with this table instead where you can manually copy the records over. And again, if you are receiving emails, you can also use this right here. Just a real quick note here about subdomains. You may have noticed I used store or orders, I think it was, .waybackstore.com. The reason I used a subdomain is because it protects off my reputation. And this is really crucial if you're ever receiving emails with Resend. You almost certainly want to use a subdomain because for the most part, if you add a domain in Resend, all receiving emails will go to Resend instead of whatever else you have set up. So for instance, if I had waybackstore.com set up and I had it set up with Gmail to receive email, and then I set Resend up to also receive email at waybackstore.com, depending on how I've set up my records, I may reroute all my emails to Resend. So by using orders.waybackstore.com, only ones sent to that subdomain will then go to Resend. All right, so enough talking. Let's actually add these records. Now, if you're manually adding these in DNS, you would just copy these over one at a time as a TXT record, etc., etc. Don't try to drag and copy them. You can see there's extra characters. You just want to use those copy buttons. Plus, it kind of keeps track of where you've done so far. Now, I mentioned I've got Cloudflare here, which means I've got a one-click sign-in. Now, the nice thing about this one-click integration is it adds all the records for me, tells me what they are, and then I can simply authorize this. However you add them, whether it's automatically or manually, you can click I've added my records, and it will start to look for those records across the internet. Now this takes some time because your DNS has to propagate all over the internet, and then that will tell mail servers, hey, this person is verified to send through Resend. Okay, once that's done, you should see it verified like you see right here. Just 3 minutes ago is when I created it, but it's now ready to use. All right, so that means if I retry my logic, which should be using this custom domain, and we go ahead and do that, it should actually come back as an ID success. So this tells me now I'm verified to send through Resend. So just like that, we've set this up with Bun. We've now hit this endpoint, but let's make it look a little bit better. So there's a couple things we can do to improve this experience. First of all, if I actually go over to my email, which I can now inspect, you'll see that it does come over here, a hello from Bun. But if I go to reply, you'll see it actually replies to orders.waybackstore.com. Now I actually did not enable receiving with Resend. So depending on how you set this up, you may want to receive back, but you have to set up a webhook and some other things like that. If you want to know how to do that, let me know. I'm happy to show you that to you. But usually what you at least want to do is allow yourself to receive a reply at an email that you actually monitor already. And you can do that within the Resend call. If I come back over to the call, we can add just one more thing, and that is reply to, and I can tell it where I want it to reply to. In this case, I would say chris@resend.com or whatever email address you're monitoring. Now, once I do that, when somebody hits reply, it will reply to chris@resend.com. Okay, so that's one thing to mention. The second thing is we could make this thing look a lot better. Now, there's a few ways you can do this with Resend. You can, of course, send along your own custom HTML. Here I've got very stylish, strong tags, but you may want to add more enhanced features. Now, for that, let's talk about React email, and also we'll talk about Resend templates. First of all, React email. So we've got some templates right here, and you can copy any of these that you want. You'll notice that it's just using basic React components. If you see down here, you can just use basic React, but it gets converted into this kind of nasty table structure HTML. Most people don't like writing this anymore, and they haven't for 25 years. And if you don't, then you can just use React email like this. Now you can go ahead and copy this code and then send it along with your call. So that's one option, but you have to style this still within a code editor. Now, as a developer, that may not be a big deal for you, but if somebody else is using this, like a marketer, a product manager, or somebody else like that, you may want to give them a way to actually interact with your template so that you don't have to constantly be pushing code changes. Well, for that, let's talk about Resend templates. In your Resend account, you can store templates like I've got right here, and you can grab a template and actually pass along some custom variables as well. So you can see here, I can pass along a name and a favorite category of this person, for instance, and this could be dynamic based on your own needs. Now, once you've got something like this ready, you can publish it, and you see here, I can publish this, and now it becomes a template that I can send simply by referencing the ID of the template. Now, in this case, let's see right here, I can just copy this top picks template, and we can use this in the call now. So back over this way, instead of passing along HTML, I can instead pass along a template. Now, this requires a couple of things, and the first is an ID. So this ID here, you may want to store this in some kind of variable, but for now, we'll just do it like that. And then if there are variables in the call, which there were in our email, then you want to also add these here. So we've got a variables object here where I need to pass along the exact name as they appear within the template. So back over in the template, let's inspect that briefly here. You'll see I've got name, all uppercase, and favorite category, all uppercase. So those are the two I'm going to use. So I'll come back over here and we'll add name like this. And I'll just say Chris, favorite category. Sorry to all my British spellers out there. And we'll just say, yeah, books is fine. Okay, so now what we're doing is replacing all the HTML or even the React email code we may need to import and pass along in our call with a simple reference to an ID for a template that already lives in Resend. If I refresh the page, you'll see it'll send that out. And if I go to check my email, you'll see right here, I've actually got this to Chris, and you'll see that since you're interested in books, here are some recommendations. So that's a nice, easy way to work with like a GUI editor to build out your own template in real time, in fact, collaboratively with your team. And then every time you want to send it, you simply reference that template ID. Well, I hope that quick crash course gave you a sense of how powerful Resend is with Bun. If you want to know about anything else we talked about, whether it's receiving emails or more about templates or React email, let me know down below and I'd be happy to do another video on it. Well, thanks so much for watching. I'll catch you in the next one. Happy emailing.